Welcome to the latest edition of the Campaign Doctor. Did you know that in the last 10 years, 90% of incumbent congressmen in the US won re-election? In other words, it's really tough for a challenger to go against an incumbent. And as I write in my book, Beat the Incumbent, which is of course written for people who run challenger campaigns, not all challenges are equal. I write about the concept of challenger quality, which helps to evaluate the quality of a challenger. So why don't you rate yourself? There are really three dimensions, which is awareness, funding, and experience. Let's talk first about awareness. If you are a celebrity, that's a 9 or a 10. I've worked myself for athletes, beauty queens, actors turned politicians, and I can tell you that it's a huge advantage. It doesn't guarantee success, but the media attention you can get is something that a conventional politician can only dream of. Speaking of which, if you are a conventional politician, but maybe you have run for local office or you have some other office you ran for before, maybe you're a 5 or a 6, maybe a 7. If you're totally new to this, then you're a 1 or a 2, or totally from scratch, a 0. So let's move on to the next dimension of challenger quality, funding. Now, if you are a billionaire who can basically just sign a check and can and wants to self-fund his own campaign, that's of course a 9 or a 10. That's a great advantage. There were many examples like Thaksin in Thailand or Berlusconi in Italy, of course Donald Trump in the US. Now again, it's not a guarantee for success. Bloomberg, for example, is a billionaire and he lost, but it's a big advantage. Now, if you're not one of them, then maybe you have a previous network of donors that you have built up and cultivated. Then you're maybe a 6 or a 7 or even an 8. If you say, I can't self-fund my campaign, but I can raise the money. For example, Nancy Pelosi was a very gifted fundraiser ever since in the early days of her career. Actually, before she ran herself, she was a fundraiser. She raised money for the Democratic Party. And when she did run the first time for Congress, she raised more money than all her primary opponents combined. So that's a 7, that's an 8. If you don't have money, you can't raise money, then you're a 1 or a 2. One thing money can't buy is political experience. Now, I'm not so much talking about experience with respect to policy, while that's also important. I'm talking about the experience of having run for office before and having run a competitive race. Because many politicians or candidates who are new to this really underestimate the brutality of a tough election campaign. So if you have done this before, you have elements of a team, you have a sense of the issues that will be thrown at you, and I think that's a great advantage. My gold standard is you run for local office, you run for re-election, you win big, and then you go up for higher office. That's an 8 or a 9. What almost always is a loser is when people don't run for re-election like Mitt Romney or run for re-election and lose like Steinbrück and then try to go up the ladder. I think that feels very wrong to me. And so I suggest that you take the average of the three dimensions, and I think if you're a 8, 9 or 10, you're in really good shape. If you're a 6 or a 7 average, I think there's work to do, but it might be worth the fight. If you're a 5 or a less, I think you have to be very honest to yourself if this is something you really want or it's just a distant dream. Thank you for watching, and please feel free to forward this to anyone you think might be interested.